my darlings. I thought that I would come on here and talk about my depression. I filmed the kids on Christmas morning opening their presents, and I've had that footage sitting in my phone, and I just haven't been able to drudge up the interest to actually go in and do the editing to post it. And the reason is because once again I dropped the ball and I lapsed in my medication. I take Celexa for anxiety and depression. And when I mess up and forget to take it for a while, when I start back up, my body has to get used to it all over again. And so every time when I restart my medication, I go through a week or two of worsened anxiety and depression. Mostly depression, with little bits of anxiety here and there. And, the degree will vary, but it's just not very fun, because in my mind, I know there's nothing for me to be depressed about right now. Everything is going great. We had a wonderful Christmas. We got so many wonderful presents from a lot of people, like through the schools and whatnot. It was very, very humbling and wonderful to just see so much kindness flowing our way. The kids had a great Christmas. We had a great Christmas. I made a big dinner. Everything was good. And everything is good. My husband's doing really well with his recovery from his surgery. Things are going really well. And there is no legitimate reason for me to be feeling this way. But I thought, since I haven't been able to bring myself to work on the video that I had intended, that I would use this opportunity to share what I'm going through. I'm sure there's somebody out there that could relate to this or understand, or, might benefit from me sharing this. So this is the difference between legitimate... Hi.
Hi, what are you doing?
Filming.
Oh, bye.
Legitimate, not legitimate depression, I don't like that phrase, but the difference between justified, I think that's a better word for it. The difference between justified depression and a disorder. And it goes the same for anxiety. Anxiety is a natural part of human emotions, to be anxious about something. But when it is an irrational anxiety that is it's not something we can control. It's not something you can rationalize. The same with the depression or anxiety. When it's a disorder, you can't just tell someone to get over it, or forget about it, or, just look on the bright side, or, you can't just tell them to get over it, because there's nothing we would love more than to not feel anxious or depressed, but it's not something we have any control over. It's not something we can rationalize away because it's not a rational thing to begin with. It's usually some kind of imbalance. And in my case right now, it's a hormonal and chemical imbalance from getting back on my medication. And this medication does help me a lot. Once I get through the adjustment period, it really does help me. I have a lot fewer panic attacks, anxious moments. I'm less irritable. I don't snap at the kids as much. I'm able to tolerate stress much better once my medication is in my system and I'm taking it appropriately. And I've been on several different medications. I've gone through a gamut of medications trying to find one that worked for me, that didn't have horrible side effects. I've had anxiety all my life, and it's unnatural anxiety. There were some childhood situations that legitimately could have triggered some anxiety in me, but I was much more reactive than I should have been. For example, I remember being sent to go clean my room and going and sitting in the middle of my bedroom floor and just looking at the clutter and the mess and just feeling this wave of weirdness just wash over me. It's very difficult to describe if it's not something you're familiar with. But it almost feels like a drug, like I had taken some kind of drug. Not that I knew what that was at the time, but it scared me. And so I can still vividly remember this happening. And I didn't know, but I thought it was just a normal thing that people experienced. Just this wave of, whoa, something is wrong. Something is really, really wrong. What is going on here? And literally feeling like I'm outside myself, just having this overwhelming feeling of something is really, really wrong, and I don't know what it is. And that was something that I dealt with all through my childhood, especially social anxiety. If somebody actually had approached me and tried to talk to me, I would literally just freeze and shut down, like absolute panic that somebody is actually talking to me. And I'm expected to have a response. I would literally just shut down with fear. I had severe social anxiety, which made it very difficult to make friends, which then in turn, adds to the depression when you feel isolated and your anxiety prevents you from connecting with other people. So I kind of got, somewhere in high school, I kind of went teetering back and forth with the anxiety and depression. There were times that it got severe, very, very severe, especially when you're going through, what I know now is, especially going through puberty, the hormones will affect it drastically. Hormones will have a very drastic effect on anxiety and depression. I remember sitting in a math class and having that same dreadful feeling wash over me, and just sitting there paralyzed, just literally wanting to die. sitting in this particular math class literally made me feel suicidal because it just triggered so much anxiety in me. Like I couldn't breathe and my chest would feel tight, and I literally felt like I wanted to die just sitting in this math class. And so I'd ended up starting to skip that class all the time. Especially like, you know, I was a teenage girl and I had a boyfriend and all that. So I had my mom get me on birth control. That was a fun trip. I started on the Depo-Provera, which is an injection that you get every 3 months as a method of birth control. And it messed with my hormones so badly that I went into a very, very deep depression, where I literally would sit in my living room contemplating the Drano under the sink, because I just felt it was just so painful and overwhelming and just so horrible to feel that way, that I just wanted I wanted to not hurt anymore and to not feel that way. You know, it's not that I didn't feel like there was anything to live for, or that there wasn't anything enjoyable about life. It was that feeling, that it was a chemical thing. And I remember calling my doctor's office, telling them that I need something different because this medication is making me feel suicidal. And the nurse basically just told me, well, we told you that this medication could cause mood swings, so I just recommend not getting it anymore. And that was the most helpful that she would be. She wouldn't let me, I tried to get her to have the doctor call me back because I was in the middle of a panic attack. Like I was freaking out because I was having these scary thoughts. It was scary to me that I was sitting there, like the reality that I'm sitting there thinking about the Drano under the sink was terrifying to me. And it was just absolutely devastating that when I tried to call my doctor's office, I had this experience with this nurse that just completely blew me off and made me feel stupid for, trying to reach out to my doctor that this medication was making me feel this way. So I kind of have had a fear of doctors, kind of. An aversion to doctors. Like to this day, I still have a very difficult time, and that's not even the only bad experience I've ever had with doctors, but I have a strong aversion when I have to find a new doctor, or if I haven't gone to see my doctor in a really long time. I will get a lot of anxiety about going back to them. Fortunately, right now, the doctors that I have had for so long that, I don't get that feeling from them anymore. Like it doesn't bother me at all. I'm very comfortable with my doctors. I found doctors that I'm very comfortable with as far as my general practitioner. I know that I can go in and tell him whatever it is that I'm feeling, whether I'm having problems with my back or my moods, that he doesn't dismiss me. He's never dismissed me. Except for, with the exception of telling me that I was recovering from mono for 2 years. But I do understand that there was the reason that he felt that way is because I would come in complaining of fatigue and not feeling, pain and fatigue, not feeling well. I was showing symptoms, basically mono-like symptoms, and so he would do the blood tests, and I did have the antibodies for Epstein-Barr virus that were extremely elevated, and so that was the conclusion. But that was a legitimate conclusion. Okay, you're having the symptoms, your Epstein-Barr antibodies are high, 2 plus 2 is 4. Your body is still recovering from mono. And I did do some research about that too. And I guess that, with Epstein-Barr, there are some people who do get mono and it will become recurring. It'll come back over and over and over again. And is, I guess, one of the leading causes of chronic fatigue syndrome. I guess they're very much linked and related. And I guess the Epstein-Barr has actually been connected to a lot of autoimmune diseases as well. But anyways, so yeah, back in high school, that was one of like the worst stretches, was during high school and the time right after high school. And I still had no idea what anxiety was. I had no clue that that's what I was experiencing. I mean, I knew what depressed felt like, so I knew that I was experiencing depression, but I had no idea what anxiety was, or that anxiety disorders were a thing. So I never did seek any treatment or help for that. And as I said, the one time that I did try to reach out to my doctors, I did not get a very warm reception on that. But yeah, after my husband and I were together for a little while, he had a motorcycle, and he would take me for rides on we would go places on his motorcycle. And I actually started to think that I had asthma, because sometimes when I'd be riding on the back of his motorcycle and we would, stop to get something to eat, I remember one specific time we stopped at Tubby's, and I just felt like I couldn't breathe. My chest was so tight. Like I felt like I couldn't get enough oxygen. Like my whole body was kind of buzzing and weird. Like now I recognize that, I was having an anxiety attacks, but I didn't know what that was at the time. I thought I was developing asthma, and so I was going to go talk to my doctor about asthma. But I guess as we talked about things more, and my husband really helped me kind of, do some self-evaluating and all of that. It was somewhere around there that I started to realize that it was anxiety. And so at that point, I kind of knew I had issues with anxiety and depression, and that, I had some things that I needed to work through emotionally and mentally. And so my husband and I, we weren't married yet, but I did make an appointment to go and see a psychologist, to try to figure out what was going on and help me be more functional, because my social anxiety was really bad. Specifically, it was very disruptive to my life. I had a really hard time. I couldn't do anything by myself or for myself. I was very codependent. I had to have somebody else all the time to do, like nothing was worth doing unless it was for someone else. So I made an appointment with a therapist. It was late in the evening. My husband drove me, and we showed up at this building where the security guard let us in, and I signed in at the security desk, and then I sat there because I asked, where do I go from here? And he's like, well, just have a seat here. And I sat there for like an hour and a half, and the therapist never showed up. So while I'm sitting there, like, I start having a panic attack at the doctor's office. Like, and there was nobody there. There were no other patients. It was literally just me, my husband, and the security guard were the only people there. So, like, I still don't know what happened, whether I, like, wrote the wrong day down or there was some kind of miscommunication, but it triggered a horrible panic attack, and because of that, I could not bring myself to call that doctor. I couldn't, just thinking about calling that doctor would trigger a panic attack. I remember one time I had a lifetime membership for Fitness USA that I had bought myself when I graduated high school. It was like my own graduation present, once I had a job, and, it was like $50 a month for like 3 years, and then you have a lifetime membership that you can use for the rest of your life. So I thought, oh, I'm investing in something that's going to help me be healthy forever, you know. But they had trainers on site, and, you know, you could sign up to have the trainer walk you through a routine, you know, kind of help you come up with a program to follow. And so I went up to the front desk and said I wanted to see one of the trainers because it had been a while since I'd been there. And they said, okay, well, you know, go stand over by this particular machine and one of the trainers will be with you shortly. And so I went over and I stood there for maybe 45 minutes, just like watching the trainers walk past me. And I couldn't bring myself to like call out to one of them to say, you know, or to get one of their attention. I just literally, I stood frozen in one spot and I couldn't move and I couldn't talk to people. And it's just like this panic attack, this anxiety just started to grow. And this panic, this feeling of absolute dread just flooding over me, I'm literally feel like I'm dying just standing there, and everybody is staring at me, you know, like feeling like everybody is staring at me and feeling like everybody is laughing at me, you know, which I know they're not reasonable thoughts, but that's how I felt. Like, oh my God, everybody is like staring at me and they're laughing at me because I'm just standing here and I can't talk to anybody. It was horrible. And so finally, like, I stood there for, like I said, about 45 minutes before I literally just ran out of the building and went and cried in my car. It was just such a horrible, horrible feeling. Let's see, what else? I didn't actually see a doctor. Well, after the incident with my birth control, I never went back to that doctor's office either when I was a kid. That was like my childhood doctor that my parents always took me to. And after the incident with the birth control and the nurse being rude and nasty to me when I'm telling her, look, I'm feeling suicidal, this medication is really messing me up. We need to do so, you know, is there anything that you can do just, you know, to help me get through while this is out until it's out of my system? Because it just is, I literally felt like I was overwhelmed with the feeling of wanting to die. And I had told her this on the phone. But anyway, so I did not have a normal doctor after that for a very long time. I think even for the things that I needed, I would, like, as far as being, you know, my girly things, you know, even birth control, I went into the Oakland County Health Department because they had free services through there. That was like the only thing I could bring myself to do. And let's see, what was I about to talk about? Okay, when I actually started getting treated. All right, so I was 20 years old when my husband and I got engaged. On New Year's Eve, at, you know, when the clock struck 12, my husband proposed to me, you know, January 1st of 2000. And we ended up pregnant shortly after. My first child was born in September 21st. My first child was born September 21st, so 9/21. So it pretty much, we got pregnant as soon as we got engaged. And we got married October 28th, like around Halloween. My anxiety was so bad about having a wedding ceremony and reception that we had a gigantic Halloween party at my mom's house for our wedding reception because I could not, I mean, the thought of, like the traditional stuff that people do at a wedding reception, like being the center of attention and had like, it like completely it freaked me out so badly that like, I'm like, there's no way I could do that. I just couldn't do it. It would kill me. So we just had a big Halloween party and we skipped, so we had like a little bit more of a traditional wedding ceremony. It was short and sweet. And then I went over to my mom's house and got dressed up for Halloween and had a big Halloween party. We didn't do like I did have a wedding cake, but we didn't do like any of the, clinking glasses or the garter thing or the bouquet, like none of the other traditional stuff because it terrified me so bad. And then let's see. It wasn't until, and when I got pregnant was the first time I actually did and I found myself an OBGYN, was the first actual doctor that I had, since the Depo-Provera incident. I would not go see a doctor, at least not a regular doctor. I do like a walk-in at the health department if I absolutely had to. Hell, I even broke my hip once. I got into a bad car accident and fractured my hip, and I walked on it for 3 days before I ended up having to like call the health department and try to find it. I don't think I had health insurance at the time either, but I ended up going through a hospital that would help me with the financial part of it. But I walked on it for 3 days because I didn't want to. I turned the ambulance away, like during this. It was a really horrible car accident too. Like I lost consciousness somewhat. Like the driver, my friend says that I was awake the whole time and was responding to them, but to me, I was out. It's like I blacked out somehow, and they had like pulled me out the car window. I was pinned in because the truck had hit the passenger side where I was. And so like, the first thing I remember was just like kind of waking up on the curb. So it was a pretty serious accident. And I refused to be seen by the medics. They wanted to take me into the hospital and, make sure everything was okay. But I outright refused. I said, no, I'm fine. I'll be fine. I wasn't fine. I had a fractured hip and I walked on it for days before I finally okay, something's really wrong. But that's just, I share that story just to say how severe my phobia of doctors had become. But once I got pregnant with my first kid, I'm like, okay, well, I'm not messing around with that. I have to have an OBGYN to make sure that the baby's okay, because then I'll, anxiety and all that. So that brings me to after I had my second child, when Kethri was born, when I tried nursing, and every time I would go to nurse, the flood of hormones would trigger very severe panic attacks. Like I would just be sitting there in the rocking chair and just like this sense of dread would just wash over me every single time, and it was horrible. So that was the first time that I ever actually talked to a doctor about my anxiety. So I talked to my OBGYN about it. She tried me on, I can't remember the names of them now, but there were some of the more mild medications. Like there were only 2 medications that I could take while I was nursing to help me with anxiety and depression and stuff. But they didn't touch it at all. So I had to stop nursing. And then she had me try out like I know I tried Paxil and Lexapro and Zoloft. I think Zoloft was the first one she tried me on. And then I want to say Paxil. She might have tried me on Paxil a couple times or something. But that one, Paxil was not good for me because I am very absent-minded and I forget to take my medications. I'll do good for a little while and then I will, a little bump in the road, I get this, my focus shifts on something else. I forget to take my meds. And I'm horrible at remembering to make sure that my meds are filled when they need to be filled. And so I ran out of the Paxil, and I dilly-dallied, and I, dragged my feet about calling in to have them send in a refill. And so I ended up going through some really terrible withdrawals from the Paxil. Oh my gosh, my husband said it was, it reminded him of someone coming off of hard drugs, because he's known a lot of people that have done that. But yeah, oh my God, I was, sweating, and my muscles were cramping up and jerking, and throwing up and nauseous, and just very severe. So I won't let anyone in my family take Paxil again, because we're all absent-minded, and that is not a medication that you want to stop cold turkey for any reason. We ended up with some kind of medication that she had me on for a while that was kind of helping. And I don't remember exactly that's why I had to find a real doctor, because everything she was having me try, nothing was working. And she's like, well, your anxiety issues are, I only have these handful of things that I can prescribe to you. And if these aren't working, then you need to go and see a regular doctor and have him, go with you, work on it from there. So that is when I actually got, it happened to be in the same building as my OB. There's a little doctor's office. So I'm like, okay, it's convenient. It's right there. So I went over there and grabbed a card, and I started seeing a doctor right there in the same building as the OBGYN that I had been seeing since. Okay, so Catherine was born in 2005. So I'd been seeing that OBGYN for 5 years. And I'd had a bad experience with one of her nurses as well. In between that time, I had gotten on a different kind of injectable, because I told him I'll never do the Depo-Provera again. But there was something else that I could get that was once a month that wasn't supposed to have as severe of side effects of the mood swings. But at some point, there was some kind of glitch with the insurance or the pharmacy, because I'd have to go to the pharmacy and they would fill it, and then I would take the little vial into the doctor's office with me, and then they would give me the injection. And it was supposed to be at a certain day. But there was some kind of, wires were crossed. There was some reason where I was behind on getting my shot. And so the nurses, when I came in to do it, and the nurses were all too busy or whatever, and say, no, now you got to come back on such and such date. Well, I was already starting to go crazy, because, your hormones, you're messing with your hormones. And so my anxiety was really bad, because I screwed up and I needed to get my shot. So anyways, I ended up kind of arguing with this one nurse, which turned out to be the same nurse that was going to be giving me my injection. And so, she kind of took it out on me. She was pretty pissed at me for being irritable. And so she jabbed me really hard when she went to, with the needle when she went to give me my injection. So that made it hard for me to go back to that doctor's office. I didn't go back for a good while. I ended up getting on to, I think that might have been I don't know. I didn't go back to see them for a while. I had a lot of anxiety about going back to that place. But, so anyways, I did see a regular doctor, and, I think that, I'm not sure if he tried me on a few different things. I want to say he did try me on a couple of different things before we ended up landing on the Celexa. But everything they gave me ended up having really weird side effects. Either it didn't help at all, or it had really weird, yucky side effects that I did not like. So we did end up landing on the Celexa as a maintenance medication, and then Xanax, for breakthrough, or when I start having really bad panic attacks that aren't being controlled by my maintenance medication. And it's funny though, because there are times where I will wake up in a panic attack. I will wake up in the morning just in full-blown anxiety and panic, and I want to burrow through my bed and not see the light of day. My doctor was very concerned about that, so he ended up prescribing it to where they prescribe enough for me to take it twice a day if I need to. But, one prescription will often last me like 6 months because I don't take it very often. A lot of the times I don't even think about taking it. I mean, I will be in the middle of a panic attack and I'm so focused on just trying to focus on whatever I need to do that it doesn't even occur to me that my anxiety is really bad right now and that I could go and take my medicine and it will help me. My husband will point out to me, Tanya, you need to go and take a Xanax. Like, he can tell. He knows what it looks like when my anxiety is really bad. Because you can't concentrate. You can't focus on anything when the anxiety is flared. I don't even really know how to describe it. It's just dysfunctional. It's just completely and totally dysfunctional when my anxiety is bad. One of my favorite examples of when I knew my anxiety was a real problem. There was something situational triggering it. I had a friend that was having some really stressful things going on in her life, and she was a lot of that stress was coming over to me. It was just not a healthy relationship, and this is how I knew that when I came to the decision that it was an unhealthy relationship, because here I was, my oldest child was only 2 years old, and I had just gotten off the phone with my friend, and I had to go and try to make dinner. It was a box of hamburger helper. So simple, right? It's super easy. But I literally sat at my stove rereading the instructions over and over and over because it was like I was just looking at the words. My brain wasn't able to take anything out of what I was reading. So I couldn't even read the instructions and retain any information to be able to make my kid a hamburger helper for dinner. And I want to say that was probably the first time in my life that I realized or came to the conclusion that I have to have some control over what stress I let other people bring to my life. That it was a pivotal moment for me where I realized that my choices, the people that I associate with, the drama that I allow myself to get involved with, it's no longer just about me. It can affect my child and how I can take care of my child. And so it was a wake-up call to me that, what, this is serious. You need to, that I have to be careful and thoughtful. So at that moment is when I decided that I was no longer going to associate with that person. Because it's not fair. It's not fair to my family, my husband and my kids, that to become dysfunctional because of somebody else's stress and choices. And it's taken me a really long time to continue to let that grow. Because like I said, I used to be a very codependent person, so I had to let that grow to where I am now, to where I'm very much just focused on my little bubble. It took a really long time to get where it is now. But, so that's a whole bunch of stuff about anxiety. But when I mess up my Celexa, I don't think I have as much of the anxiety flaring as I do the depression. For a week or two, when I'm restarting my Celexa, I get very depressed. It's not a natural depression. It's not because of anything. There isn't anything that I can pinpoint it to. So it's not like I can go do something about whatever is making me sad and make it better. It's chemical. It's coming from the inside. And it makes me feel very apathetic. Like nothing is important. Nothing really makes a difference. Nothing really matters. Like I have no interest in things. Like editing my vlogs. It's something that I've been having so much fun doing for like the last month that I've been doing it. But then all of the sudden it just, I just don't feel like it. I don't feel like dealing with it right now. Like anything that would normally bring you joy just doesn't. Everything is just a chore. And in those times, like right now, it gets even harder to like take care of my family because nothing feels important anymore. And it's at these times where I'm very grateful for my lists, because then it doesn't matter, how I feel about stuff or if there's anything that I feel like I really need to do right now, because I don't feel like I need to do anything. But I know that this isn't natural, that that's not reality, that there are things that are important and things that need to be done. So I have my lists. So it distracts me from everything. I can look at my list, I can pick the top thing off of my list, and I can go and get that done. It keeps things from having the whole household fall to pieces, is by having those lists and having something that I can just check things off one by one. Like, okay, I'm sitting here. What should I do? I don't feel like watching TV. I don't feel like watching YouTube. None of these videos are catching my interest. Maybe I'll read my book, but no, I don't feel like it. And then I have to charge my Kindle, Well, if there's nothing that sounds exciting, then you might as well do something productive. So I look at my morning routine list or my to-do list on my G-Tasks, or I look at any of the lists that I have posted all over my house, and I just pick something. Look through the list. What's one thing that you can get done? And I pick something and I get it done. And then I'm actually kind of sort of still being productive, and things aren't going to be as bad when I come out of my depression and things start feeling normal again. Because it really sucks when I do let everything go. It has happened. Normally, I want to say in the past, a lot of the times when I would start feeling this way, whether it was because I was just having a bout of depression, which happens, life events can trigger it, even when I am on my medication, or if I mess up my medication and I have to get back on it, which actually happens pretty frequently. A lot of the times I would start Netflix binging, or, Netflix or Hulu or something. I would literally just curl up in bed and I would spend days, literally days, sometimes a couple weeks even, hunting for one show after another to escape into, so I don't have to deal with or address how I'm feeling. And then, of course, everything in the house goes to shit because I'm not doing anything productive. I'm not doing any of my housework chores. There's, laundry's not getting done. People are faking dinner every night. I'm not making sure the kids are taking their showers or stuff like that. So it's really, really is helpful when I do have these lists that I can just go and check something off and try to keep things from falling apart around the house while I'm dealing with my slump. Well, I think I've talked for a really long time, and it's going to be a really long video, but I really felt like I wanted to share my journey and the inside scoop on my anxiety and depression issues, and because I know that I'm not the only person that's dealt with this, and you know, I know that when I'm feeling like this, that it helps to feel like there's somebody else out there that can relate and understand. It makes me feel a little bit less crazy. So hopefully this video can do that for somebody else. You know, it's a funk. It's gonna pass. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel. No matter how yucky I start feeling, I know it's only temporary. And so if I can just keep trying to put one foot in front of the other while I wait for it to pass, it will pass. And then things will start to feel normal again. So thank you guys for listening to me ramble. And I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
For life is quite absurd, and death's a final word. You must always face the curtain with a bow. Forget about your sin, give the audience a grin.